What's your expectation this year, Sip, for Fred Hoiberg? We know that according to the metrics that Scott Frost had to win at least 6, but they fired him before that opportunity came about. For you, what does he have to do?
I mean, I don't think about it in those terms necessarily. It'd be nice to see Nebraska at least make the NIT. Now, listen, I said that last year. I mean, there's no reason last year why they couldn't at least put themselves in position to be a bubble team and then make the NIT. I mean, it's sort of gotten ludicrous, the discussion, right?
Yeah.
What should they do? I would say in most markets, you'd say win half their Big Ten games. But if you say that around here, people look at you like you're crazy. Like, why would you expect that?
That's so true.
Why would you expect?
Are you crazy?
Yeah. Are you out of your mind? What's wrong with you? So, I mean, I'd like to say that win half your Big Ten games, but that doesn't seem realistic. So you have to kind of evaluate it from there. You just say, win 6 games in the go 6-14 in the Big Ten. I look at it through the Big Ten prism mainly. I mean, that's what this is about. If you're going to make the NCAA tournament, you're going to have to do it largely by playing well in the league, in a very tough league. So I'd like to say they should win. If I was the AD, I'd say you better win 8 to 10 games in the Big Ten this year.
Interesting. Out of curiosity, Sip, who do you think is going to be the most impactful newcomer for Fred Hoiberg?
Greasel.
Okay.
Sam. I mean, because he'll have the ball in his hand a lot, and he's a veteran player. Then they have other veteran players, and if it's not Greasel, I'd say Walker. But as far as newcomers go, I think Sam Greasel.
Okay.
There you go. Stephen M. Sipple, Husker Online, presented by On3, of course, is where he works these days. Let's move on to football. Malachi Coleman commits high 4-star ranking from Lincoln East. He had said that before Mickey started recruiting him, he had no interest in going to the University of Nebraska, and now he is. Does that indicate to you that he's been told that Mickey will remain on staff?
Well, I'd like to ask Malachi that question. I think maybe he's been told there's a good chance. I don't know how. I don't think. Listen, I wasn't at the announcement last night, so I don't have a lot of inside information. It would be hard, I think, to guarantee anything along those lines. If you hire a coach that's not on this staff, I don't know if you can tell that coach that he has to keep a certain individual. Now, it could be they already have somebody in the, I guess it's possible Trev has somebody right now, and that somebody has said, yeah, I'll take the job and I will keep Mickey if that's what you want. There's a lot of possibilities in that discussion. But the one I'd be surprised about is they don't know who the next head coach is, and yet they're still telling the kid that Mickey's going to be here. That would surprise me.
Yeah. Interesting. From all the names that have been thrown out, Sip, who would Steve Sipple be excited for the hire of by Trev Alberts to coach Nebraska football?
Excited. I don't know if I get excited. Too much gets me excited anymore. I don't know if there's one out there that there's some intrigue, and there's some. I look at it more like this, Mike. I mean, I envision that person on the sideline on Saturday, and I have a certain vision of what the team would look like. And Lane Kiffin is one definitely that intrigues me. There's a lot of them. Bill O'Brien definitely intrigues me. Lance Leipold definitely intrigues me. Out of those, out of everybody, I mean, the most intriguing to me is Urban Meyer. And I feels like that ship has sailed, but that's the one that, come on. I mean, if Urban Meyer got hired at Nebraska, every day will be interesting. Every day would be interesting. I mean, off season, that would light a fire. I mean, it would cause a lot of discussion. That's the one. I mean, that's the main one.
I would be freaking out if it's
there would every bar in Lincoln would add like 10 extra security cameras just in case.
I don't know that. I mean,
just in case of what?
In case Urban decides to go hang out with the fan base.
Yeah. There has to be an Urban cam. I mean, if you're a bar, you have to have an Urban cam.
Yeah,
I would think. Interesting comments by Trev Alberts, the athletic director, about what he wants to see. He wants to see a physical team. He says football is still a gladiator sport. It's about toughness. Does that point to a certain coach in your mind?
Oh, it shouldn't. I mean, it isn't. I mean, I think most coaches are of that mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I will say, Tom, yeah, some more than others, though, right?
Yeah.
Certainly Brett Bielema is of that mind. He definitely comes to mind. You know, Lane doesn't really come to mind, although they're running it really well at Ole Miss, which indicates a certain sort of mentality. Yeah, I mean, there's certain guys that I associate with that sort of play, for better or worse. I mean, some of those guys aren't the greatest. I mean, who's really impressing me in that regard is Jim Harbaugh. I mean, Harbaugh is look at Michigan's offensive line. And that is a big ornery unit that is mauling people a lot of the time, not all the time. It's hard to do it all the time, but Harbaugh coaches the kind of football that I really like. And, you know, that's why he was able to take down Ohio State last year, and we'll have a great chance to do it again this year.
Sip, Nebraska's got their last bye week before a 5-week gauntlet of probably the 5 toughest teams, most physical teams in the Big Ten. What do you think Mickey Joseph had the team focus on during the bye week and now in the lead up to the preparation for Illinois? I mean, granted, the staff was out doing some recruiting as well, but for the team that's here right now, where do you think the focus was?
Well, I think health. That's not a provocative answer. It's not exciting, but I think they only had 2 practices last week. I mean, I don't know what focus you can put on that. How much focus you can put on that. Tackling's always got to be a big issue, but this time of year, I don't think you turn your guys loose, right? You just really can't. I'd say health, getting this team healthy, getting its legs underneath them, and getting ready. And then I think in the coaches' offices, there's things that are critical, and I think that's continuing to evolve offensively. There's things Whipple. There's still kind of. I wrote today. There's still kind of cards Whipple has to play. You got Ramir Johnson with live legs. You got Tommy Hill moved over to receiver. Now, you know, on the 3rd play of the Purdue game, he was running wide open down the field. Those are 2 other pieces that can be used. So I just evolution of the offense, I think is, and then one other thing I'd add to that is, I think they did a good job of helping the offensive line against Purdue in the second half by keeping the running back in more and chipping. I think you can do some more things to help the offensive line as you go forward.
You know, and I was going to ask you about the article from earlier today with Tommy Hill. How big of a contributor do you think he can be? Obviously, kick returns showed some flashes there that we haven't seen in a while. And, you know, running wide open on one play is one thing. But when you've got Trey Palmer on the other side, it seems kind of interesting if you had somebody else that's got the speed and the ability to get open downfield.
Well, I'm just thinking of ways, partly, and I don't know if I wrote this or not, but one thing he can do is alleviate some pressure on Palmer. Palmer's got to get more and more focus, but you know, there's only 2 safeties. You know, one can go over, one can help the corner. They both can, and if the other's safe, you know, you got problems if you got 2 speedsters on both sides. And Tommy, it's not a pie in the sky notion. I'm not saying Tommy Hill's going to catch 7 balls against Illinois, but if he can catch 1 or 2, you know, and he is a deep threat, and he is a deep threat, that alone can be helpful. That's what I'm talking about. Nothing crazy here. I mean, it's not. I'm just saying that Tommy is a legit receiver. I mean, all you had to do is listen to Casey talk about him recently. that he made his mark in high school as a receiver and moved, and went to Arizona State as a receiver and moved. He can do it, and it's alluring, and so is Ramir. Here's why they're alluring. They got live legs. I mean, not everybody over there has live legs right now. Those guys got live legs. Right. Not everybody in the season, not all the opponents you're going to see has them. Those guys happen to have them, and they both happen to be very fast.
Yep. Stephen M. Sipple of Early Break with Sip and Jake, also of Husker Online, presented by On3. Nebraska's schedule may be less daunting or more daunting depending on how you look at it from the start of the season. Illinois, we certainly didn't expect to be 6-1 at this point and a top 20 team. But Minnesota 3 weeks ago, we thought was maybe the best team in the West, and that may not be true. Michigan's certainly good. Wisconsin's good on the schedule. Then Iowa, and this might be Kirk Ferentz's last year. Who knows? Maybe they might go after Brett Bielema after this year. Do you look at the West and say this is better than I thought or worse than I thought?
Worse. It's worse. I don't think it's bad. I don't want to. It's a tricky conversation. It's not good. I mean, the West isn't good. It's not a good division right now. But I don't think it's bad. I mean, when I watch these teams, they're not bad. They're just not. They're not top 10 type teams. You know, they're just not. You just don't have that. Maybe I don't. I watched Illinois against Minnesota. They don't look like a top 10 team to me. They're pretty good. I think it's a very interesting division right now. Again, it's good coaching. They still play their asses off in this division. They make everything's pretty hard, but it's not overly talented. So Nebraska, I keep saying it, they're scary in their own way. I mean, they're not a real scary team, Nebraska, but in kind of ways, there's certain ways they are, and a lot of it is that speed we alluded to on offense. And you know what? They're kind of quietly playing good special teams. I mean, the punt return game's gotten pretty good. Tommy about broke a kickoff return. He looks ready to break one to me. He really attacks. I mean, Tommy Hill attacks as a return man when he gets a chance. So yeah, Nebraska's really intriguing to me because they're sort of in their own crazy way, kind of scary.
Steve, this is a weird year in that Wisconsin's going to have a new coach at the end of the year. Maybe it's the coach they have right now at the interim level in Leonard. Nebraska's going to have a new coach at the end of the year. I'm wondering about Northwestern. If Pat Fitzgerald moves on, they've won one game. It was against Nebraska. Kirk Ferentz might decide to hang it up after this year. I mean, that Nebraska-Iowa game could be for a bowl game. I didn't expect this much turnover in this division. How surprised are you?
Real surprised. I didn't expect this kind of year at all. I mean, you never would have expected this from Northwestern. I don't think anybody saw it coming. You know, I think a lot of people assumed that, you know, this was an even year or odd year, so they're going to have a win. They're going to have a winning season, whatever the hell. I mean, you know, they go back and forth. They're
3-9, 9-3,
so
3-9, 9-3.
Yeah. So my co-host, you know, said all off season, God bless Jake, that they'll throw a good season this year, which I kind of half expected. I didn't think they looked great in Ireland, but they had a pretty good night in Ireland. Nobody expected that. Wisconsin, you wouldn't have saw. I don't think anybody saw Paul Chris getting fired.
No,
I didn't hear that chatter. Maybe I missed it. And you know, Minnesota at 1-3 is something I don't think many people expected. You know, they have. It's been shaky at quarterback because Morgan got hit in the head and had to go out early and didn't play it in the whiteout. But 1-3 is not what you expected from Minnesota. Yeah, hardly any of this was expected, really. I mean, really, if you just go team to team, hardly anything I don't think was expected. Maybe the closest thing is Purdue. I think Purdue's, it's gone about as you'd expect for Purdue.
Steve, I want to switch gears to stuff we did expect, and I want to switch sports. How much have you had a chance to follow what John Cook is doing at the Devaney Center with a team full of unbelievably talented young ladies?
Yeah, I read Abby Barmore of Husker Online. I read her reports, and I'm very familiar with John and the program. So I know a little bit about what's going on. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to me because he's changed up parts a lot. You know, he's moved the lineup around. He's using two-setter system. And I just think with all the athleticism and explosiveness they have, it seems like he can make about anything work.
Yeah. And it seems like about anything is working.
Yeah. I mean, I asked this question to Mike. Is there concern though that they might be peaking too early? I mean, as a coach, you always want because they're playing so good. I mean, it's hard to believe that they can play much better, but maybe they can.
Yeah. I mean, it's a program record right now that they've swept 6 straight matches, 3-game sweeps in 6 straight matches is remarkable. I mean, I covered it, you know, during the Terry Pettit years when Nebraska was dominant in a much lesser conference. I mean, it was when I'm talking about the early 90s, you know, Nebraska in the, you know, it just wasn't nearly the competition night in and night out. And they'd have runs like that where it seems like they were sweeping everybody, but it's way different now because the Big Ten's so much better. John's just really at the top of his game. We say that every year. Are they peaking? You know what? You know why I don't worry about that? Because of John.
Yeah.
I mean, because he'll contemplate that if he feels like that's the case, and there's probably a way you can knock back that team in practice a little bit. You know, he's probably got ways to make sure they stay hungry, and I think he can do things in practice that helps alleviate that concern.
Yeah. They've been fun to watch. And you're fun to read and listen to on early break. It's good having you on the show. Thanks for doing it. We appreciate it.